los desplazamientos entre ciudades. Se incrementan los controles en todo el país. El gobierno trata así de disuadir a quienes quieren pasar estos días con sus familiares. Este miércoles, además, habrá toque de queda. Nadie podrá salir de su casa. Con más de 9.000 infectados y unos 60 muertos, Israel ha impuesto severas medidas para contener la propagación del COVID-19, especialmente en ciudades y barrios ultraortodoxos, donde se registra el doble de contagios que en el país. Medidas que esperan ir suavizando la semana que viene porque el impacto económico es enorme. El paro ha pasado del 4 al 25%. Uno de cada 4 israelíes se ha quedado sin empleo.
Bueno, al margen de las novedades sobre la pandemia del coronavirus, hoy hemos conocido que la justicia de Australia ha anulado la condena por abusos sexuales a 2 menores al que fue el encargado de las finanzas del Vaticano, el cardenal George Pell. Hoy ha salido de la cárcel después de que el Tribunal Supremo le diese la razón en el recurso que él había presentado al considerar que fue condenado con pruebas insuficientes. Pell cumplía 6 años de cárcel. El Vaticano siempre defendió su inocencia y tras su absolución el Papa Francisco ha rezado por todos aquellos que cumplen condenas injustas.
Buongiorno.
En inglés. Son las 2 y 13 minutos.
May not need too much medication, but something we'll have to look at with the numbers of patients that we've had. It might represent issues about ensuring we have rehabilitation facilities available for those patients.
That's interesting. Carl Walden, really appreciate your time today. Thanks a lot.
Okay.
The epicenter of the virus hitting in Spain, having suffered the highest number of deaths. 743 more people have died in Spain. Total number of people the number of confirmed cases of the virus in the country has risen to over 140,000, arrives at over 1,000 cases from yesterday. Let's turn again to Sky Sports. I can say there was some encouragement from numbers from some European countries, but
yes, the number of deaths in Spain up by more than 100 today, Colin, and the number of infections is beginning to slow, though. It's hard to say that there's hope and that this is good news in any way when you hear that more than 700 people have lost their lives in the last 24-hour period in Spain. But the reality is that Italy and Spain's growth is beginning to flatten now. That curve that we keep talking about, which obviously grows exponentially in the beginning of an outbreak, is now showing signs of flattening in both Spain and Italy. But of course, both countries have been so badly hit by this virus. Spain now has more known cases of COVID-19 than Italy. Italy, of course, still has the biggest loss of life. More than 16,000 people have lost their lives here in the space of a little over 6 weeks. But Spain has quickly closed that gap with nearly 14,000 deaths there as well, and of course a smaller population than Italy. Both countries have been in lockdown for a significant amount of time now. For Italy, it'll be 4 weeks tomorrow. Spain went into lockdown around 5 days after Italy, and they are now under weeks of hardship, national lockdown, very strict measures in place in both countries. They are now finally beginning to see the benefits. So what next? Well, it's the same question. In Spain, they've extended their lockdown until the 25th of April. Here, it's been extended until the 13th of April, but the expectation is that will be extended yet again, which is something that Italians are finding very difficult to deal with psychologically, as they aim for a new deadline, which then gets extended again. And there's very little expectation that life is going to return to any sense of normality come the 13th of April, which is next Monday. But what we may see, Colin, is factories going back to work. The Prime Minister is holding a video conference with scientific advisors today to talk about this next phase. Of course, there's no template for it, no one knows what it looks like. And EU 27 members are also holding a video conference later to discuss the financial plan to how to rescue EU 27 economies, which of course have been battered by this crisis. The last time they held such a video conference call, an agreement they couldn't find. So this is something that they still need to work on, because of course the next phase of this crisis is the social and economic emergency that could emerge with businesses having been in lockdown for 4 weeks now. So no one knows quite what the answers are going to be, but it's certainly going to be challenging and painful, just in a very different way.
Thanks, Sally. This is Sky News. Coming up, recovering from coronavirus. We'll be hearing from a patient who was in intensive care with COVID-19.
Get me the fuck out of here.
So much for that. We gotta find Ellie.
London's high. London's high today. 20. Oh, that's way high for them.
North is nice weather. That's why
Well, as we've been saying, the Prime Minister is in intensive care. He's been on oxygen after his coronavirus symptoms worsened. One of thousands of people being treated by the NHS after testing positive for the virus. Well, joining us now is Matt Dockeray, who was in intensive care with COVID-19, has since recovered. Matt, welcome to you, and thanks for agreeing to speak to us today. Just tell us when you were discharged from hospital.
I was discharged, we're going back to the 25th now, so it's about two, 3 weeks ago. It's been a bit of a whirlwind.
Sure it has. How are you feeling now? Fully recovered?
Yeah, still not fully recovered. The recovery takes quite a while. The symptoms that I had, I ended up with something called ARDS. So my lungs are getting there, but I'm technically fit and healthy. It's just getting the breathing right and the lungs back up to speed. But to all intents and purposes, physically nearly there.
And was it the case you'd been at home, self-isolating for a little bit, maybe not feeling so well, all the symptoms we've been talking about, the fever, the temperature, etc., and then there was a sudden decline? How did it work?
Yeah, well, previously, when I picked this up, there wasn't the same guidelines that we've got now about self-isolation. This is going back to the start of the month when if you've been in contact with someone from China or a confirmed case, then you should go see and get a test. So I was continuing to work. I was working in central London until it got to a point where I physically couldn't function anymore and had to go sick and had to stay at home. But that rapid decline, sitting on the couch and not being able to breathe, that happens over a period of a few days. So the fever gets worse, the chills get worse, the breathing gets worse, and you sort of get really, really bad quite quickly.
And who made that decision? Did you just think, okay, I now really must get myself to hospital? Was it an ambulance? How did it work?
It was my wife. She'd seen me get progressively worse. She'd seen me decline and struggle for breath and knows me day to day how I to the point where she said the night previously, if you're any worse tomorrow, we've got to call the ambulance. We'd rung the doctor, we'd rung 111, you couldn't get through to 111. The doctor's advice was the same. You probably got a bit of a virus or flu. And that morning when I woke up and I couldn't talk, I couldn't get one word out, and my wife called the ambulance, and it sort of escalated from there.
Presumably it was pretty much straight from the ambulance to intensive care, was it?
Yeah, I was rushed to Wexham Park quite quickly. They had a process set up where you come out of the ambulance into an isolation unit. They do the swab straight away, so in the back of your throat and up your nose, take all your vitals and assess you there and then whether you need to go straight to intensive care or you can go to a separate segregated ward. My condition was such that I needed to go straight to intensive care and progress from there.
You progressed from there. What did it involve? Help with breathing? How invasive was it?
Yeah, so to start with, it was just a normal oxygen mask that you see commonly, and then my oxygen levels weren't picking up, so they go through a routine of oxygen levels to try and get those levels stabilised. With me, it wasn't until non-invasive, so the next step before a ventilator, intensive care nurses and doctors can talk to you and say, because you've declined over such a period of time, it's rare that you're going to improve very quickly. So the next stage would be ventilating, but that hospital at that time, I ended up with something called an Optiflow machine, a non-invasive ventilator as such that puts warm, humidified air into your lungs to help pressurise and to get that oxygen in there.
Yeah. And in terms of how it felt, I mean, that's a really difficult question to answer that, isn't it? I mean, clearly deeply uncomfortable, painful. What was it like?
To build up to it, it was extremely painful. I've heard people say it's a bit like glass, it's a bit like stabbing pains in your back and your chest. When it got to the point where my oxygen levels were really, really low and my lungs were struggling, the pain goes away. It's this symptom of hypoxia. It's almost like a euphoria. So then total confusion comes in because you feel so ill, and then you get waves of I feel better, and then panic sets in. There's all these conflicting feelings, and then the overriding feeling is fear and panic because you physically can't breathe. You can't get a deep breath in, and you're coughing. So every time you do get a breath in, you're coughing up again. So the process just continues and continues.
And all that was happening over a period of days. I mean, what level of awareness did you have of what was happening around you, and what might happen to you?
Sorry about that.
It's all a bit of a blur. You sit there now, I've read text messages, the building up to it was very blurry. What comes very vivid is the conversations that you have. It's almost like a light switching on. I don't remember people coming into the room, but I remember the conversations they were having. The doctors explaining that the next stage you go on a ventilator and it is for support, that they're quite adamant that the treatment is you fighting and staying positive and doing your best and getting as much air in as possible.
You're on the telly. I predict that's just said. Matt, we just got to the end of it anyway. So really appreciate your time. You explained it really clearly. Thanks ever so much.
Thank you. Cheers.
Heading for the northwest evening. It's fine actually for the next few days. Very mild for most and warm in the southeast, but northwestern Scotland and the far west of Ireland is pretty windy. Most places dry and sunny all afternoon, but southern England, northern Scotland and northern Ireland, we think the cloud will increase there. Western Channel counties may catch the odd shower later on. Any but northern and northwestern Scotland, Northern Ireland and North Ireland will see showery rain moving in.
I shot the hell out of that guy, huh?
Coming up next, it's Ian King Live on the programme today, latest from the city.
Stop it, Phil.
I feel sick.
You can't be barking at everything.
You just hang back like I told you to.
You're glad I didn't, right?
I'm glad I didn't get my head blown up by a goddamn kid.
You know what? No.
Really?
How about, hey, Ellie, I know it wasn't easy,
Well,
but
that's
that was for me.
distraction.
Thanks for saving my ass. You got anything like that for me, Joel?
Naughty.
Gotta get going.
You can
Wait.
be back in just then.
quick there, okay?
Not doing it.
I'm gonna find a documentary in a minute. Googles. If I want to find a documentary on something that you haven't seen. So I'm going to look at documentaries on Netflix, shall I?
Whatever you want.
Don't know what on yet, I haven't watched it yet. What would you like the subject to be on? We have to think more by the time I finish this. Because I have no idea, but I need to
We need to get back out, find that bridge.
This crap. The worst forensic programs into us about that. No. These documentaries, well, some of the things that we watch in the evenings, we just share and we education to us. Interesting. I was reading, there was you know, that program about big, oversized. So what else I could do?
Wow, look at that.
Minnie!
Stories live from Sky News City Studio. Health crisis, economic crisis, political crisis. With all eyes on the PM's health, the pound bounces back and stocks are up across Europe. Well, this is sterling right now as it climbs back above $1.23. I'll get a live update on global markets. As financial markets remain volatile, I'll speak live to the chief executive of the FCA, the city regulator. And entrepreneur Duncan Bannatyne will join me to discuss how business is doing with the ongoing crisis.
Look at you busy.
Intensive care. With all eyes on Boris Johnson's health, the pound has bounced back, having fallen sharply on the news when it was announced last night. Well, markets in London are stable this lunchtime, with the FTSE 100 up strongly, extending its gains of recent days and reflecting a continued worldwide rally on hopes that the crisis is coming under control. Well, this gives you a sense of how the pound reacted to that news last night and how it's responded. Bounced back this morning. It's now testing $1.24. I think I can show you the latest price. No. Here it comes, the pound right now. It's just pushing $1.24 right now, and against the euro, it's more or less unchanged right now. It doesn't seem to have affected equity markets at all. It's the FTSE 100 right now. It's exactly 2.5% higher. Well, with the political crisis in Westminster occupying much of the attention, the economic crisis in the country at large right now still raises, and pressure remains on the government and the banks to get support to businesses that require it. We can go live now to 702 He's a man responsible for regulating those banks. Executive board member and interim chief executive at the Financial Conduct Authority, Christopher Woolard. Christopher, welcome to you. How happy are you with the way that financial markets have functioned during this crisis?
thought it was that rats.
What we've seen is obviously an unprecedented crisis in the last few weeks. But the way markets have responded, they've tended to remain orderly, even though they've been volatile. And obviously we've intervened wherever we've needed to try and ensure that those markets, which underpin millions of pensions and millions of jobs, remain as stable and as orderly as possible. But as well as that, obviously our focus has been around how do we help consumers through this unprecedented time, and also how do we help firms respond to that where they need to as well.
We'll get on to that in a moment, but there was obviously a lot of discussion a few weeks ago about whether the stock market in particular should be suspended. Was there ever any serious thoughts or conversations about that?
We've taken the view throughout this that it is the best thing possible for markets to remain open wherever that would be humanly possible. We've spoken to our colleagues across the world, particularly in the US and elsewhere in Europe, and we believe that keeping markets open is the right answer. We've seen markets operate in an orderly fashion, and although there's been a lot of volatility there, although there's been a lot of speculation around those things, we haven't seen the need to intervene in that way.
Well, you mentioned just now the need to support consumers through this. Are you worried that financial scams are going to be on the rise during this crisis?
One of the things we've highlighted is the fact that there are a whole new crop of scams. They're the traditional ones we've always seen, but they come with a coronavirus twist to them. Consumers do need to be alert to them. We've published more warning notices than ever. We've been working very closely with the police and the other authorities as well. But consumers really do need to look out in this time. It's also a time when, honestly, consumers can also make mistakes because they're worried about, for example, their investments. They're worried about what they're seeing happening in the markets and what they're seeing in headlines. And this is a space where people really do need to have cool heads. And if they are thinking of making major changes, for example, to a pension they have, they really should seek advice first.
And what about the operations of firms within the financial services sector? You've obviously just gone through the ISA deadline, for example. Were you happy that firms have the relevant, appropriate levels of staff to deal with those sort of applications?
We're obviously working very, very closely with firms. They're all under pressure in terms of centres and other operations. But what we're seeing at the moment is people trying incredibly hard, I think, to keep essential financial services running well. We have to obviously by helping consumers through this time as well.
You also oversee the financial payments system. Are you happy that the payment system's been functioning okay? I mean, there's been a lot of talk that this might accelerate the move to a cashless society. What have you made of that?
So the payment system's been working well. One of the things that we are particularly interested in for the longer term, so beyond this crisis, is what's happening with the future of cash. There are still many vulnerable people who do pay, but obviously we have seen an acceleration, and in particular, for example, changing the limit on contactless payments to allow more people to be able to do that in the current period.
Which of course carries its own risk, because potentially that is one way in which fraudsters can potentially cash in on this crisis.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So everything we're doing at the moment is a balance of risks as we make our way through this. But in particular, one of the things we're doing is trying to ensure, through a mixture of supporting the government's payment holidays on mortgages, for example, or the work that we're doing around payment freezes on credit cards and overdrafts, is to try and make sure that consumers are supported through what is an incredibly difficult, unprecedented time, and we take them out the other side in the best way we possibly can. But everything we do at the moment is about balancing risk.
Anecdotally, there's been a lot of suggestions that insurance companies are trying to use exclusions into policies, potentially not paying out on business interruption plans. Is that something that's come across your radar?
Yeah, so we issued guidance to insurers very, very quickly in the first few days of how we expected them to behave in the current circumstances. We are obviously getting lots of stories and lots of noise around things like business interruption, insurance. Clearly, when they're writing new policies for the future, insurers can exclude things. They did after the last SARS outbreak, for example. But we do expect them to act fairly, and we do expect them to pay out where that's justified on existing policies.
What kind of penalties can you bring to bear on insurers that haven't been claimed by the risk?
How much money?
So look, there's a range of things we can do, either about the senior individuals that work within those insurance firms, or to deal with those firms in terms of their conduct. But as I say, what we've done very early in this is to set out our expectations of the insurance industry. We want to try and ensure that all consumers get a good outcome. One of the things we're doing tomorrow is actually talking to the major chief executives of the insurance industry as well.
Now, today you published your business plan for 2020-2021. I just wonder what you're having to put on hold while you wrestle with the coronavirus crisis.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, so I mean, our plan we published today very clearly sets out the response to the coronavirus crisis will be our absolute priority for the immediate term. But there are also some longer term issues that we think are really important in the market around investments, around credit, around how payments and the infrastructure around payments that we already touched on work. We want to make sure that they're working properly long term, and indeed some of the issues we see there may be accelerated by the impact of COVID-19 as well. Clearly, at the same time, we've had to put down an awful lot of things, both in order to help firms respond to this crisis and really focus on their consumers, but to make sure that we really do have an absolute priority around helping them at this very, very difficult time.
Now, you're speaking to me as the interim chief executive of the FCA. I presume you'd like the job on a permanent basis, would you?
I think that's worries for another day at the moment. We've got a really difficult situation here at the moment that we have to get consumers through.
No, you're here.
Well, I'll to talk to you. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks very much.
Now, the pound fell last night against the US dollar on news that Boris Johnson had been in intensive care unit all the way down to 1.66. It has since so clawed back some of those losses. Currently stands at approaching $1.24. It's little changed against the euro. On the equity markets, Wall Street's had a very strong session last night with the three main US stock indices, the S&P 500, the Dow and the Nasdaq all rising by 7%. The S&P, in fact, enjoyed its 8th best one-day gain since the Second World War. Well, those gains continued into Asia overnight. Most of the main markets there have traded high. As you can see, the Nikkei up 2%. The Chinese markets back from a one-day holiday yesterday, also ahead by 2%. And Europe has followed up with solid gains itself. All of the major European indices are in positive territory this lunchtime as investors take heart from falling coronavirus fatality rates. Here in London right now, the FTSE 100 has joined in the party. It's currently up by more than 2 3/4% in a broad-based rally. The leading gainer is the cruise line operator Carnival. That's after it completed its emergency fundraising. Saudi Arabia taking an 8.2% stake. That's all the Financial Times having a pun there about it raising a boatload of cash. Also ahead, EasyJet. That's after it successfully raised £600 million selling commercial paper through the Bank of England's COVID corporate financing facility, ahead there by nearly 20%. Outside the FTSE, the mid-cap market having a very strong session. You can see the FTSE mid-250 ahead there by more than 6%. As for the oil price, well, that is trading higher this lunchtime amid intensifying talk of production cuts. A barrel of Brent crude right now will set you back $33.74 a barrel. That's up by just over 2%. Well, let's discuss the markets further now with the backdrop of this political uncertainty at Westminster and the ongoing economic crisis. I'll just speak now to Ranko Beric. He's head of markets analysis at Monex Euro. Ranko, very good to see you. Are you surprised there wasn't more of a reaction to Boris Johnson going into intensive care on the FX markets?
Well, not really. At the moment, Touchwood, the Prime Minister will pull through. He's having intensive care, and crucially, it's been confirmed that he is not on ventilation. So at the moment, it looks like precautionary measures. And the other thing to remember is that sterling at the moment is really trading as part of a category, which is small or medium-sized open economies with current account deficits. And as a result of that, really what matters for the pound's fortunes, particularly against the US dollar, is broad trends in risk appetite, particularly in dollar funding markets. And at the moment, those trends seem to be very favourable for the G10 currencies against the US dollar. Now, I would note that sterling is today the second worst performer in percentage terms against the greenback. So it is lagging. But if you look at what was happening in the middle of March, for example, we can see that really, for now, risk appetite has improved, and we're not seeing worries of a major credit crunch or a dollar funding crunch in macro markets.
Ranko, markets are often accused of being slightly heartless. Is it the truth that they just really don't care that very much about VM's health?
No, not necessarily. I think if you look at really what's happening in the rest of the cabinet, it's obvious that unfortunately many of our senior politicians have become ill. I think at the moment the base case is that, as is consistent with the overall stats we're seeing, they will recover. Now, I think if you did see disruption to the UK's leadership, you probably would see more of an adverse reaction in sterling. And also the other thing to remember again is if this was happening in the middle of March, when sterling was 12% down against the US dollar and at multi-decade lows, I think the reaction would be a lot more dramatic, shall we say. So I think at the moment, the thing that sterling's enjoying is favourable global tides.
Very interesting, Ranko. You say whenever there's a risk-on, risk-off move, which seems the market's traded in this very binary fashion. I mean, the dollar, everyone just runs for it now. There's almost a lot of previous safety plays almost ignored sometimes.
Yeah, that's right. So I think there's interesting things happening in this risk-on, risk-off dynamic with the US dollar at the moment. In the middle of last month, we did see a 2008-style rush into US dollars. That was when, as I said, sterling collapsed a full 12%. The other thing that was happening was cross-currency basis swaps, which is, to put it in layman's terms, the cost of acquiring US dollar funding using money that you borrowed elsewhere. That cost was soaring. And that is an indicator of a financial system that is desperately scrambling for US dollars to meet funding requirements. Now, the US Federal Reserve, together with the Bank of England and many other global central banks, has set up aggressive swap operations to distribute US dollars into global financial markets. Now, the key thing that hopefully will make this different from 2008 is the speed and aggression with which these measures have been implemented by central banks. So we've seen funding pressures ease in global markets, and hopefully that will mean that there is no scramble for US dollars. Now, that's not to say that we won't see a scramble towards safe haven assets in general, and perhaps more dollar buying further down the line, but hopefully it won't be funded by actual liquidity issues in the financial system.
Well, speaking of stimulus measures, Ranko, we've also got a teleconference today of all the Eurozone finance ministers. What are you expecting to see? I mean, there's been a lot of talk about corona bonds. Do you think that's going to happen?
Oh, look, it's very simple. Europe, and really I'm using a euphemism for Germany and the northern European countries, need to decide if they're in this, if they're in the euro. We know that Italy is facing a macro shock, the like of which really has not been seen since the Second World War. And on top of that, we're talking about the country that was among the worst hit from the Eurozone sovereign crisis. So however it happens, if it's a European stability mechanism that writes a check to create a stimulus effect across the Eurozone, or if it is an official Euro bond, the Eurozone as a whole, the Eurogroup needs to write a check that Italy can cash to do the type of fiscal stimulus that we've seen in Britain and in the US. For now, I think European markets are being buoyed by a tide of confidence based off stimulus, based off stabilising virus numbers in several key areas such as Italy. Now, if that confidence should go and enough fiscal stimulus is not delivered, then I think we'll see European and particularly Italian policymakers put in a very difficult position. So I think what we'll see today is the European Stability Mechanism definitely get rolled out to help business loans in particular. The other thing that potentially you may see today is some form of employment support of the sort that has been very successful in Germany in the past and hopefully will be successful in the UK. So those are kind of the two themes I think that will be key today.
There.
All right, Ranko, very good to see you. Thanks for joining me.
I tried to put it away, she really go.
So Ranko talking about optimism among investors over the virus and how it's shaping out now. Well, are global markets starting to see some light at the end of the tunnel? What is the data that could be driving this uptick in sentiment? We're right now to West London and our economics editor, Ed Conway. Ed, what have you heard?
So fucking fast.
Well, we've done sources looking at the global and indeed on the UK data for COVID-19 and the impact it's having. Here in the UK, we've been focusing every day, haven't we, on the data that's been released by the Department for Health and Social Care on the number of people who have died thus far. But that is quite a kind of initial snapshot of what's going on. It doesn't tell you what's happening on any given day. And what we had this morning was data from the Office of National Statistics that is slightly more comprehensive, giving you a sense of when people were affected by the disease and looking more broadly at the UK, not just at COVID-19 deaths, but other causes of deaths, because I think the big question mark for many people has always been whether there's been overcounting or undercounting when it came to the numbers that we hear about every day from the government. And it turns out really those numbers, they're not necessarily kind of up to date, so they aren't telling us what's happening on the given days that we get them announced. So we'll have just after 2 o'clock we'll have new numbers. They're not telling you what's happened in the past 24 hours. It turns out a lot of those numbers are showing you what happened in previous weeks. But what we do know is the picture from those weeks, according to the new ONS data, is that there were higher levels of deaths than we had appreciated at the time. So what that suggests is some of the data we're seeing right now isn't telling you the kind of day-to-day impact of what's happening in this disease. Instead, it's giving you a reflection of what happened about a week ago. But thus far, the numbers we've had in the last few days have been slightly more encouraging, both in terms of cases and in terms of deaths. They have dropped, at least the growth rates have dropped significantly over the course of the last few days. I think a lot of focus here will now be on whether the numbers in the UK continue to rise at the rate they were last week, which is possible, but people hope that it's going to fall because of lockdown taking effect, or whether they continue to drop. In the US, they are continuing to increase very sharply indeed. In the UK, there is some hope, I think. Let's keep our fingers crossed. The numbers we're going to get in the next few days show that the slowdown in the number of deaths and the number of cases has actually taken hold.
All right, thanks for that. That brings some breaking news now, courtesy of our city editor Mark Lyman, who joins me on the phone. And Mark, I gather you've got some interesting news regarding Ocado.
Yes, sir. This relates to the issue of fraudulent pay at Britain's biggest companies, which risks becoming a huge political flashpoint during the coronavirus pandemic. What I can reveal this lunchtime is that Ocado, the online supermarket, is becoming the first German business to suffer a shareholder backlash since the COVID-19 outbreak, when it holds its annual meeting next month. Now, I've obtained a report from the proxy advisor ISS, which is recommending that Ocado investors should vote against the company's remuneration report. That's partly because of a near £59 million package awarded to founder and chief executive Tim Steiner last year. ISS also wants shareholders to oppose the re-election of Andrew Harrison, who chairs its remuneration committee. Now, since companies announcing here that their bosses are taking pay cuts for the duration of the pandemic, Ocado has yet to announce such a move. And while the supermarket, the online supermarket, is no stranger to public rows over board pay, I suspect that this year may be louder than that.
All right, Mark, thanks for that. I bet all their directors have got their delivery slots all sorted out as well. Well, still to come on Ian King Live, Duncan Bannatyne will be joining me.
That was yesterday, and it was massive.
And that was even a full moon.
Yeah, that's today.
Let me see, your fingers in the way. So that's not the full moon. The full moon is the next day, so tomorrow's full moon. Tonight's not full moon, tomorrow is, and then the day after's coming out of it again. So that's lucky, we want put them out tomorrow night. The big ones have to go. The little ones are alright, but the big balls have to go. Outside. Well, not outside. Be in the moonlight.
Well, then what? Okay, Moose. Yeah, we're having fun there.
See, now they're all riding tin. Look at them.
Eh?
Look at them riding tin.
Yeah, they're driving through that area now. They gotta show up somewhere. This will be your lucky day.
Little shits. It can't be the oranges, because the oranges went gone. Yeah.
Smoked in the evidence room. I was totally controlled by my addiction.
These drug labs, a single.
Yes, Camila?
Again, I don't feel good.
Just a little longer. It's just a few seconds. Camila? Camila, are you okay? Camila! 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 Camila, just breathe. Breathe, Camila.
Cool, man. Take it easy, all right?
You know that story about the kid?
Excuse me.
Anche Jessica, thank you.
Comic I've been reading? The hero says after the battle.
Endurance survive. Okay.
One in este.
나병은 뭐라 그래?
January 1974. They just moved in 2 months prior. My partner and I were first on the scene. He was feeling for a life and something bumped him. That's when we found the little girl hanging from this pipe.
Jesus. It's a taxing lifestyle. A lot of factors that go into success. As I got better, I was very careful that I'll continue
takeover will be very good for the BSU. He wants to expand
We see this.
and he intends to make our approach.
Caesar.
Tell me, who's the one you want more than anything? Nancy. I'll get you Nancy.
Baby?
This person you're after, he has overwhelmed
Yeah, we have
fantasy
to
life. And the sea.
Come here, Ellie.
Allora sto volendo appunto siamo pure a questo.
Ultras. Football bulletins.
I stayed at a place like this, back in the Boston QZ.
No one's known why.
I'm a boy with a moral compass. Always a step ahead. Everything that happens, store stuff in front of you.
People are starting to move surplus arms to Contras. We can't just look away.
Russian shipping threads. The M16s most likely. He's the old man.
God.
I got a big deal coming. Big deal.
My dad's innocent. I'm going. Go. I'm tired of from this end.
Purpose of your visit to Costa Rica?
Vacation.
Looks like you're waiting for somebody.
I think you.
Everything is here. This operation's gonna blow up in somebody's face. You boys still think you're out here?
No one's been able to get a read on this guy. All we do know about him is what he shows up. Fucking truck.
Where did you find this?
How did you find me?
If you had to pick a reporter capable of tracking a load of munitions in South America, wouldn't you pick you? I think you're gonna get very far.
Get out of the car.
You could have gone on a plane and left this place.
In a perfect world, we make perfect choices. In the real world, we make real choices.
Sorry, I was listening to some things that come up. So I actually wondered. I thought you would, this evening, that you might want to listen to some stuff you find as well. On that.
Bacon. Of course it's good.
It could have happened to anybody. But it didn't.
This Bayer asked me if I hated my men.
Hey, go around.
Fue a 39 minutos por carreteras comarcales y terminó con un tiroteo. Su novio murió. Cuando la rompimos, no había ni rastro. No había ni rastro.
Y no porque no buscaran. Fue más lista que la policía, más lista que los perros, más lista que los inspectores, más lista que nadie.
Yolanda cambió la tarjeta SIM de su teléfono a última hora, cuando ya veía que los iban a detener. Y supongo que la otra se la cagó. ¿Te agobió?
¿Y cómo puede usted estar tan seguro de eso?
Porque... No lo supimos hasta que cruzamos la
Fernando piensa que ella guardó alguna
busy.
Hola. Macarena, ¿qué tal, hija? Muy bien. Oye, te llamo para decirte que me voy a ir de vacaciones en un velero. ¿Y eso? ¿Con quién te vas? Con Simón, el chico que te comenté, ¿te acuerdas? Pero, así, de la noche a la mañana, ¿te ha salido ese plan? Sí, porque tenía un buen Ya. Bueno, se lo dices tú. Oye, ten cuidado, ¿eh? Que tu madre es muy traicionero. Pero ese mes de Navidad vamos a ir a Formentora, a Cerdeñas, a Corfú. No, hija, pues nada. Pásatelo bien. Y ya Macarena, hija. No lo sé. No lo hemos pensado.
Cover me!
It's only a European Spanish.
Come on, come on.
That's one to watch. That was a very relaxing
Lost him.
How does it feel? I never went to secondary school. Because
Hey, looking sharp, man. You too.
Push it.
We're okay. They can't see us.
Hay un equipo de la casa.
Leave them alone.
¿Seguro?
Easy, son. Just take it easy. It's all right. They're not the bad guys. Lower the gun. Man, you hit hard. Yeah, well, I was trying to kill you. Yeah, I thought you were one of them, too. Then I saw you. If you haven't noticed, they don't keep kids around. Survival of the fittest.
You're bleeding.
Ah, it's just nothing. I'm Henry. Sam. I think I caught your name was Joel.
Ellie.
How many are with you?
They're all dead.
We don't know that.
Okay,
A bunch of us. Someone had the brilliant idea of entering the city, looking for supplies. Those fuckers, they ambushed us. Scattered us. Now it's all about getting out of this shithole.
We can help each other.
Ellie.
Safety in numbers and all that.
Can you say that again in children 9 levels times, please?
Could help you. We got a hideout not too far from here. Be safer if we chat there.
It's a film.
Take us there.
Do you know what I mean? Because all these documentaries